Today I will be doing a joy picture using ink and watercolor. For this picture, I'm using a little piece of watercolor paper, and I'm starting with a Sharpie, but feel free to use a pencil. I'm putting my hand right in the middle and then just kind of making lines a little bit outside of my hand. I'm going to turn these lines into what look like parentheses. So kind of a curved line on either side. Notice how they're kind of floating right in the middle of my picture here. And I'm going to make them a little bit longer, about the length of one of my fingers actually. I'm going to go ahead and add another line that kind of goes right next to my first ones that I have made to add to the center here, and then I'm going to hook them on the bottom and kind of connect them together. And then those are going to be the outsides of my letter O, which will also serve as kind of a little stable. I'm going to add a star kind of hovering over these lines I've drawn, and I'm just making the little points of the star. So it's kind of hanging out up there. That's how I make my star, at least. And then from my star, I'm going to make the little stable roof. So it's going to kind of connect to the top part of those curved lines that I started with on my video, just like that. Next, I'm going to make a slightly curved ground for my stable. So I'm connecting my lines on the bottom, and then I'm going to add a zigzag line to show where the hay is going to be. And above the hay line, I'm going to make the top part of the hay. It has just kind of a little dip in the middle, and that's where we'll put baby Jesus. All right, next I want to add the other letters for the word joy. So the Y is actually going to be connected to the stable, and I'm just going to make kind of the top part like this first. And notice that my letter is about the same width as my stable sides too. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the bottom part of the Y. If it helps, you could always make just a line Y and then kind of draw lines around it to make it the bubble letters. I'm also going to add the letter J, so I'm going to add kind of a slanted line right here, hovering above my stable. I'll bring it down on both sides, really trying to use up the space of my paper. I'll bring it across and over so I can get to the part that goes down. And then I'm going to bring the part down. It can hit my stable on the side, that's okay. And it will curve around and come back up. I'm going to go ahead and fill that out right here. And now I have a nice wide J. Now you can make adjustments to your letters if you want. Maybe you want to kind of fatten up one side of your letters to give it kind of a shadow effect. Sometimes I like doing that just to make my letters a little bit fancier, but it's really up to you. I decided to kind of do the left side of my letters, make them a little bit darker, the lines maybe a little bit thicker on the left to give it a slight shadow. But again, it's really up to you if you would like to do that or not. I'm taking my time with this, making them nice and neat, and adding these kind of little decorations or details. Remember, if I'm ever going too fast for you, please feel free to pause the video so that you can catch up with me as I am doing this drawing. All right, now we have also not yet drawn in the most important part, which is baby Jesus. So there's his little head and his body. I'm keeping it nice and simple. All right, I am happy with my drawing. I'm going to go ahead and use my watercolor tray to paint. So I am just using some liquid watercolors that I have, or some tube watercolors that I have put in this tray. They have dried, so all I have to do is reactivate them with water, and I can go ahead and paint. I am starting off by painting my J red. I'm just using a small round brush, and then I will go ahead and move on to another area. Remember, when working with watercolor, if you touch a section that is still wet, you can have your colors bleed. So I'm being pretty careful on my edges, especially next to a wet area, so that I don't get the colors bleeding together. I did speed up this part a little bit just so you can kind of get the idea of my painting, and so it's going a little bit faster here. But I went ahead and did the stable part with the brown. I'm going to go ahead and do the little manger part, the bottom of the stable, with brown as well. You can always come back and add things, make it a little bit darker later, especially after it's dry. And then I'm going to go ahead and use some green on my Y. Now you can use whatever colors you would like. I decided to go with red and green just because they are Christmas colors, and I went ahead and painted those. Now that those are somewhat dry, I'm going back and adding some patterns on top of my letters. So for the J, I decided to do some stripes just with another layer of red. I do have two reds, but you could even use the same red, and just by adding another layer, you can it will look darker on top of the first layer. And then I also wanted to add a pattern to the other areas as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make some dots here on the green to add a little bit of excitement to the green as well. And you do have to wait for this to dry. My green is not entirely dry as I'm doing this, so the dots are kind of bleeding in. But once dry, you can see the dots look very nice. All right, the only other thing I want to do is add a little bit of some splatter just to add some excitement to my background. So I get my brush full of whatever color I would like to splatter, and I put my finger right next to my paper, and then I just kind of splatter. I brush the brush on my finger, and as it comes off, it splatters onto the paper, so you can see the little flicks of paint. I do this very close to my paper so that the splatter doesn't go all over my house. If you hold your finger just a few inches above, that should be a good amount of space away from the paper. And then if you add a little bit of extra water, you get more splatter. Less water is just a little bit of splatter, so you can kind of experiment and play around. And if you get some splatter that you didn't want, you can always just like soak it up with a paper towel, or a Kleenex will do the trick as well. So it's very forgiving. And there you have it, my little joy painting with watercolor and Sharpie. I hope you enjoyed painting with me today. I hope you try this at home. And if you're enjoying these videos, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and please come back and visit Ehlke Art again for more fun art tutorials. Also, feel free to check out my website, ehlkeart.com. All right, thanks for watching.